let's get right into it, Amitabh, because I know how busy you are, and thank you so much for making time for us. But the first and obvious question, you're in the thick of things. How do you see the pandemic progressing? How long before things return to normal?
So, Veer, first of all, I think we must understand the nature of this crisis. I mean, it's one of the biggest crises the world has ever seen. It's bigger than what had happened in the 1920s, and it's bigger than the 2008 financial crisis. In fact, it's about 50 times bigger in financial and economic terms than what had happened in 2008 when global economy had declined by about 1%. But now the global economy is already declined by about 6.5%. And therefore, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted every sector across the world. But perhaps, to my mind, the travel, tourism, and hospitality sectors have been the most impacted of all. And, and this is true across the world, including those countries where the peak of the pandemic appears to have crossed. European countries, even there the tourism has been very badly hit. And the World Tourism Organization has predicted a fall in international travel spending by between 910 billion to 1.2 trillion this year. And of the 217 destinations tracked by them, actually about close to 72% had closed their borders to international tourists. And therefore, this is an incredible statistics, that states, countries after countries have closed their borders. And there's one statistic from OECD is that nearly 75% of all tourism in countries which are considered wealthy is just confined to within their national borders. And therefore, to my mind, there has to be an inward focus for the short to medium term, and there is a huge opportunity for domestic tourism. But this is a massive crisis, and travel and tourism has been impacted in a very big way.
Let's talk a bit about domestic tourism, since you brought that up. At least in the medium term, is that one door opening for the Indian tourism industry?
Well, I'm a great believer in domestic tourism. I think because domestic tourism is really a great way to look at it being, creating a huge opportunity in the Indian context, because we are a country of 1.4 billion. There are a vast number of North Indians who haven't seen South India, and the South Indians haven't traveled to the western part of India, and so on. And I think we need really, as this crisis gets over, and let me also tell you that my belief is that soon after the pandemic, travel and tourism will bounce back in a very big way. It's going to bounce back with vengeance. And therefore, we really need a very inward-looking, a domestically oriented, incredible India 2.0 is as the future. And there are massive opportunities for domestic travelers to find options in travel, in accommodation, in cuisine. And these are actually at par or above the offerings anywhere in the world. And infrastructure and accessibility have actually, in India, improved radically in the last couple of years. And my personal view is that a huge focus has been laid on domestic tourism. The Udan scheme has been a huge success. It has led to the launching of about vast number of new airports. We have launched about 100 tourism-oriented trains. We are opening up new trains, about 150 of them to private sector. The Bharatmala and Sagamala projects have led to massive investments in highways, roads and ports, and roads have radically improved. We've seen new airports coming up. We are actually privatizing a vast number of airports, and the next gen airports for Bharat Nirman will also be a game changer, because you will have new airports coming up in various parts of India. And my view is that there'll be a huge quantum jump in domestic tourists. We are also doing a holistic island development based on sustainability of Andaman and Nicobar and Lakshadweep Islands. These will form a very integral part of the domestic tourism plan. And so, to my mind, travel, tourism, and hospitality, the domestic component of it, will have a huge multiplier impact on the economy. And this is a massive opportunity for Indians as hotels and restaurants start opening up in months to come in a big way.
You first made your reputation in Kerala. And until that point, we thought of the Golden Triangle, all the usual destinations, and suddenly you put Kerala on the global map. What do you think other states should do to try and replicate that success?
So, Veer, my view is that, first of all, states must realize the critical impact of tourism on both lives and livelihood. They must realize that this is a massive job creator, and actually, in the post-pandemic period, actually tourism can be the biggest driver of their economies. So first of all, a huge amount of political and administrative will. Secondly, each one of the states of India has some unique product. Kerala had its uniqueness in terms of its backwaters, in terms of its wildlife, in terms of its houseboats. But every state has some unique product, and therefore every state needs to differentiate itself from other parts of India and create a unique brand, and then create a seamless experience from the point of arrival to the point of departure. And I think a huge focus needs to be laid in terms of the experience. The tourists must get a unique experience in terms of visiting the heritage sites, and India is just full of them. And therefore, my belief is that there will be India's massive opportunities. Each one of the states has an opportunity in terms of either its heritage, either in terms of its cuisines, either in terms of its wildlife, and states have this massive opportunity to really give a huge push to domestic tourism and hospitality sector. And my personal view is, look at a state like Bihar, for instance, the Buddhist circuit. You can attract tourists from all over South and Southeast Asia. But the experience from Patna to Bodh Gaya to Rajgir to Nalanda has to be totally seamless. So you need to improve your bathrooms, you need to improve your roads, you need to just lay focus on being a great facilitator, and you need to bring in private sector. And now with both Oyo, Airbnb, flights operating to Gaya, each one of these states has massive opportunity. Look at UP. It has every single product available, and UP can be one of the greatest destinations in the world, well marketed, well projected. Or look at Madhya Pradesh, for instance. And these are states in the eastern part of India where a huge amount of wealth creation and jobs need to be created. Look at Madhya Pradesh. It has Khajuraho, it has you can chase the rains in places like Mandu, you can see the wildlife, you have Gwalior, you have just about every single project, every single product in India, and great experiences. So my view is that as the COVID-19 gives way, and as in another 6 to 7 months, India has already created, firstly for domestic tourism, there's huge opportunity. But even internationally, we've made visa very simple through the electronic tourist visa. We've created a new class of visa so that people can come in at just about $25 for a month as a short-term tourist. And therefore, I personally see that as India bounces back, or as the travel and tourism world bounces back, India should be back in a very, very big way. We just need to be ready and get up. And I think states need to really push for it.
So Bhuvnesh introduced you and your many hats, but he left one out. You're also the king of infrastructure. Though people in the tourism industry don't realize this, you spent a lot of your career developing infrastructure. Now, people in the tourism ministry over the years always say we can do whatever we want to try and attract tourists. But if there are no roads, you mentioned bathrooms, if there is no infrastructure, how is tourism going to grow? Is the government seized of this? Is there an attempt to manage both together?
So we quite often we tend to look at the allocation provided for the tourism sector as something which is all that you look at. But India's pushed a lot in terms of infrastructure. Actually, the whole focus in terms of the national infrastructure pipeline which has been laid out is in terms of creating totally world-class infrastructure. And actually, if we need to bounce back, the whole focus, as was done by President Roosevelt in 1928, was to lay a huge focus on infrastructure. And therefore, this government is laying a massive amount of focus on infrastructure. And one of our philosophy is that we must bring in private sector. So a lot of projects which government owns are actually being put out into private sector hands through asset monetization. We've sold a vast number of our assets, highways, roads, etc., to international companies. And some of the top investors from across the world have come in. We have sold a number of airports recently. We'll be selling many more. We brought in Zurich Airport to do the new Noida airport, which will be one of the biggest in the world. We will be doing the new Mumbai airport. But let me assure you that a huge amount of work has been done around ports, around roads, around highways, and around the corridors. So we've actually ended up creating new cities. If you go to a city called Aurek near Aurangabad, it's a completely new greenfield city. Or if you go to Dholera in Gujarat, and both these cities have a tourism component to it. So a massive focus has been laid on infrastructure, and all of these will have a huge multiplier impact on tourism as we go forward. And my belief is that actually the focus has to be on creating seamless experiences. And therefore, what the tourism sector needs to do is India has a massive amount of heritage, and post-COVID-19, there'll be a huge focus on cultural tourism. My own belief is that the world will move towards shorter duration holidays. The world will move towards more of experiential travel, which is about discovering and giving back to the destination something, and becoming richer in terms of culture and heritage from destinations. And therefore, India is in a unique opportunity to attract the rich and famous from across the world in the post-tourism era. And I think a lot has been done on infrastructure.
Now, you've been speaking to a lot of people I know in the tourism and hotel industry, and though they're reluctant to say this on public platforms, I'm sure they've said this to you. There's a certain level of disappointment that the government and various state governments haven't done enough to help the restaurant industry and the hotel industry. How valid is that disappointment?
No, actually, if you look at all the sectors, out of all the sectors, the tourism, hospitality, the restaurant, and the aviation industry has been the worst impacted. There's no doubt in that. The government hasn't yet looked at sectoral packages at all. Not a single sector has been yet given a package. But measures have been taken by the government and the Reserve Bank of India, both fiscal and monetary, including the Atmanirbhar Bharat package and the Pradhan Mantri Relief Yojana. And these packages actually provide a lot of assistance and support. There are more than 2 lakh suppliers to the industry, most of them manufacturers covered under MSME sector that they supply products to hotel, restaurants, catering and food service industry. They will be recipient of the stimulus packages. We worked in consultation with the Federation of Association in Indian Tourism and Hospitality and other bodies of the travel and tourism industry to find solutions for their problem. Earlier we'd given the benefit on GST on room tariff reduction and exemptions. So that we brought it down from 28% to 18%. And for room rates below 1,000 rupees, it's 0%. But from 18 to 5%, there's a tariff for room rates below 7,000. So let's be, my personal view is that as the government looks for sectoral packages, and I think as the COVID scenario, the scenario is not yet it's not yet clear on how this pandemic will span out in the next couple of months. So I think we'll have to wait and see, Vir, as to how whether it's going to be a prolonged crisis or whether this is going to, we'll have a vaccine in the next 4 to 5 months, or whether it'll take another year. So I think immediately what we need to do is to really push demand from the domestic demographic, and that we need to push in a big way. And my personal belief is that we will continue to support the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry. This is a sector which creates vast number of jobs, and it's got a huge impact. It's a positive impact across economy. We will continue to assist and support it. In fact, as and when government looks at sectors to support, definitely travel and tourism will be the first and foremost sector to be supported by the government.
That's quite a commitment, Amitabh. You're saying that so far at least we've looked at the economy as a whole. Once we start looking at individual sectors, tourism and travel, hospitality will be one of the first sectors this government will look at?
Yeah, sure. I have no doubt in my mind that, because you need to look at the crisis in its totality, on how long it will be prolonged and how long will it go on, and when the vaccine will come in. We are still not yet clear on that scenario. So actually not a single sector has been touched either by Reserve Bank of India or by the Government of India in its fiscal and monetary policy so far. As we go along, as and when we look at sectors, travel and tourism will definitely be amongst the first few sectors to be looked at, because it's a very big creator of jobs. It has a huge multiplier impact on economy, and we will definitely try and do our best for the travel and tourism sector, because this is a sector where job creation is a big challenge, and we need to create jobs. And therefore, we'll definitely work in very close partnership with the hospitality and the travel and tourism industry for this.
I'm sure everyone listening to you will be happy to hear that. But let me turn this around. People in the hospitality industry feel that when they go to the public at large, often when they go, I find this when I go on social media, when they go to politicians, the general perception is that you're a luxury industry, you're an elite industry, what do you have to do with real people? And when they try and explain that it's a huge job creator, it contributes to GDP, this falls on deaf ears. Now that we're at a moment of crisis, perhaps there's some time for reflection. What should the industry do to change its image from being just this useless luxury elite industry, which of course it isn't?
Yeah, but firstly, I think it's important that industry must work as a single group. It has too many associations. You have the travel and you have the Travel Agents Association, you have the Tour Operators Association, you have the Hotel Association, and within that you have the Federation of Hotel and Restaurant Association. So I think the entire travel and tourism industry must speak with one voice, because my personal belief is that this is the single biggest creator of jobs, and actually that's what happened in Kerala. We first commissioned a study on the tourism satellite account of Kerala, and that demonstrated that actually it was creating about 9.5% of the jobs, and that's why increased allocation was made for tourism by the government of Kerala in terms of infrastructure. But our belief was that hotels, and there's a private sector element to the whole thing, and therefore the private sector must build resorts and must drive tourism, but other infrastructure, the last mile connectivity bit and the marketing of the destination will be done by the government. And that's what we did. We also laid a lot of focus on creation of new products. And as we went along doing that, more and more jobs were creating, and particularly for the women. Kerala created a large number of jobs for women. And therefore, this is one sector which has across the world created a huge number of jobs. It is also actually it's a sector which has immense impact in terms of wealth creation. It's not a sector for the rich, only for the rich elements of society. Today, as you see, there are two-star hotels, three-star hotels. There are bed and breakfasts, and there are a whole range of products in India, and amazing range of products which India has opened up to. So it's just the huge range which will give a huge impetus to and its multiplier impact will be so enormous as we go along. And therefore, my belief is that there is no sector which can give a huge impetus to Indian economy other than tourism. And therefore, if in the post-pandemic era, if there's one sector which we need to give a huge thrust to for a quick revival, is the travel and tourism and the hospitality sector. And I would also like to mention the restaurant sector, because restaurant sector actually creates a massive number of jobs. It's a sector which has done enormously well for Indian economy, and therefore that's a sector which again requires a big impetus and a big push for growth.
When you say requires a big impetus and a push for growth, the restaurant sector will ask, what will you do? What do you have in mind?
Well, two things. One is, I still feel that while we've been able to do ease of doing business on a large number of other areas, we've jumped up 79 positions in the World Bank ease of doing business. We've made the states compete on a range of areas, including manufacturing and services sector, and made them easy. We rank them, we name and shame them. But on restaurants, I still feel it's very complex, very complicated, because land is involved, renting is involved, and the rents are very, very high. So we need to do something radical about it. And I'll be very happy to work with the Restaurant Association to see how we can bring in a very, very genuine online, totally online, without any physical means, an online clearance for the restaurants, and see how best we can reduce their rentals in the long run.
That's again a very significant commitment. You're saying they face very complicated issues, too many clearances, too many hassles. You would be happy to sit with them and try and work out a scheme whereby as much as possible is done online, so it's easier for them to function. That's a commitment.
Yeah, that's a commitment, and we'll work in partnership with the states. Thirdly, one more issue is that in several states of India, for restaurants, our bar prices are too high, just too high. And therefore, it's important that we bring them down to international levels. And, restaurants is a very unique part of the Indian experience. If you want to market a product, if you want to market a destination, the Indian cuisine, the culinary experience has to be a very fascinating part of that experience, as it is in many other countries which have excelled in, look at France, in many of these countries, the experience of cuisine is a very integral part of the travel and tourism experience and getting enriched from the destination. And therefore, we need to make it on par with some of the best global practices across the world.
How much can you actually do, people will ask, because nobody doubts the intentions of the center. But so much of this is the states. Even in Delhi, we've seen this drama over the last week about whether restaurants can serve liquor or they can't. And in terms of liquor, there is this stigma in India, the sense that if you're serving liquor, you're doing something vaguely immoral. And therefore, restaurants face endless problems. Yet, if you want to attract tourists, and even if you want to do domestic tourism, you can't really survive with this attitude, can you?
No. So therefore, I think it's important that all of us, I think each one of us who has a stake in the travel and tourism industry, including the associations, all of them need to work with the administrative and the political systems in the state. Really, the challenge, Vir, right now is in states. And just imagine if we can create 6 or 7 great states as far as tourism is concerned on the world map. Just like we've created Rajasthan or we've created Kerala, if we have 6 or 7 more states competing individually in the world market, in the global market as a tourism product, I think your earnings from travel and tourism will jump up very substantially. These states will grow and prosper, and they will become unique brands in the global markets.
Let me ask you a personal question. You've spent your life with the government. From the time you joined to today, do you think attitudes to tourism within the government have changed?
I think they've greatly changed. When I joined in Kerala, actually as a young officer, nobody had heard of Kerala as a tourism destination. It actually emerged as one of the top destinations. I was just talking to the Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh. One of his, he's drawing up a post-COVID plan. One of his key areas for development is actually travel and tourism. And my belief is that Karnataka is laying a lot of emphasis on this. Tamil Nadu is laying a lot of emphasis on travel and tourism. I only wish that some of the eastern part of India, I still feel that there's a great product in Bihar. There's a great product in Uttar Pradesh. And, these products need to be really put out, and, if they can become great tourism destinations, you'll see a great experience around it.
Final question. What do you tell people who are watching this show, who are worried about their future, who think they will be bust, people who've gone back to their villages, say we'll never come back and work as waiters or whatever, because that sector will not exist? Are the gloomiest predictions true? Or is it that there will be some kind of shakeout, but that we will bounce back?
Veer, I have no doubt in my mind that we are going to bounce back. The same was said in the 1920s when the Great Depression happened. The same was the feeling when the 2008 economic collapse had taken place. But let me tell you that a pandemic can only alter the progress. It cannot stop it. A responsible and a phased recovery is imminent, and travel and tourism sector will recover, will bounce back, it will grow back and grow with apps. It'll boom 6 months after the pandemic, it will absolutely boom. Every single one of us who've been locked up in our houses and in our rooms, all of us would like to travel, and therefore you will see both downstream and upstream benefits will accompany this growth. And there will be huge, to my mind, there'll be robust demand, and this will be spurred by domestic travel and consumption. But in the long run, you will see both international tourism bouncing back in a very, very big way. I have no doubt in my mind that, probably 1 year down the line, each one of us who has a stake in travel and tourism sector growing and expanding would have realized that this sector can be suppressed for a little while by the COVID, but in the long term, it will grow and expand in a very big way. I'll also say that this is a sector where some restructuring will be required. It may happen, but in the long run, everybody must innovate. It's also an opportunity for innovating as it's happening in other sectors. Supply chains are getting massively restructured across the world, and similarly it'll happen in the travel and hospitality sector. You will have it'll be very difficult for travel agents and tour operators, unless they provide a huge value, to exist. And therefore each one of the hotels or bed and breakfast or 2 stars, each one of them will have to digitize, and each one of them will have to actually use technology in a very big way. And this is important because if you look at the top 10 companies of the world today, they're all, 9 of them are tech companies today. So all of them actually have used technology to make a big jump. And therefore my belief is that the travel and tourism industry must use technology in a very big way, make it pervasive and across each one of the chains, because this is a sector which is actually driven by the private sector and across all segments of the travel and tourism industry, from the taxi driver to the tour operator, to the guide, to the hotels. The whole entire experience must be seamless digitally, so that everybody has across the world is able to do the booking on a mobile across. And that, to my mind, will, and it's possible in India today because we are the only country in the world with over 1 billion plus mobiles. So we should actually really push for digitization of the travel and tourism sector and make a quantum jump forward digitally.
Thank you, Amitabh. That's very, very perceptive. What you're saying, in effect, is that the government may not have done very much for the sector so far, but that's not just true of travel and tourism. That's true of every sector, because it's taken an overall approach rather than a sectoral approach. When it takes the sectoral approach, one of the first sectors it will look at will be travel and tourism. You've said to the industry, there's just too many bodies. You guys are sometimes a little confusing. Why don't you get yourselves better organized so you can deal with various people at governmental levels? You've said to the restaurant industry that I know how difficult things are. I know how complicated things are. If you guys are willing to come and talk to me, let's try and work out some kind of online schemes whereby you can get clearances with very few of these problems. And you've said to the industry, you've said things will bounce back. Don't be so pessimistic, but accept that there will be a degree of restructuring, and use this time not just to moan, groan, or complain, but to re-look at your businesses, to use technology to your advantage, to review what you're doing. Because when the boom returns, and you're saying it will certainly return, be sleek, modern, technologically advanced companies. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And let me just assure you that we in government will work in very close partnership and hand in hand with the entire travel, tourism, hospitality industry to ensure we'll work very proactively in the post so that they become a very key driver of India's growth and of its economy in the post-COVID era.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amitabh.